because I know what took us to that stage, because when I made the call to DNC, so I picked up that envelope from the mailbox. Out of curiosity, I opened it standing at the mailbox, and this is what that line said, which took us immediately to accepting the invitation. This is what that line said: Mr. and Mrs. Khan, would you make sure that Maria is not thrown out of this country? She's our friend and we love her. I looked at that line one more time and I walked a little faster to home to tell Ghazala, look, maybe our time has come to go. And I made that phone call immediately that yes, we would come.
Khizr Khan was born in rural Pakistan, the eldest of 10 children, and moved to the US with his wife in 1980. The couple became American citizens and raised their 3 sons in Silver Spring, Maryland. Mr. Khan holds degrees from the University of the Punjab, Punjab University Law College, and Harvard Law School. He is a member of the Bar of the Supreme Court of the United States, the District of Columbia Bar, the New York State Bar, and the American Bar Association. His law practices include complex civil litigation, electronic discovery, health privacy compliance law, and civil rights and veterans' rights advocacy. He is also a Gold Star parent. His middle son, U.S. Army Captain Humayun Khan, was killed in 2004 while stopping a suicide attack in Iraq. Of Mr. Khan's new memoir, the New York Times Book Review writes, "An American Family is as much the universal story of the immigrant experience in America as it is the story of one particular family's struggles and sacrifice." And continues, quote, "Khan's book is also a story about family and faith, told with a poet's sensibility." We're pleased to have Professor Martha Minow joining the author in conversation tonight. She's the Carter Professor of General Jurisprudence at Harvard Law School, where she has taught since 1981 and served as dean between 2009 and 2017. We greatly look forward to their conversation. Please join me now in welcoming Martha Minow and Khizr Khan.
We are so honored that you are here. How does it feel to be here?
Well, every time I have come to Cambridge, it has been equivalent to performing my pilgrimage. And especially today, sitting under your light and your grace, I am so humbled, I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Well, you have elevated us all. I have written one, but you've written now 2 books. Maybe you'll tell us about both of them. Your memoir is such a beautiful book. Why did you write it?
We were traveling. We were at Charlotte Airport, changing gates. Ghazala and I were walking. A couple reached us and asked us several questions. When did you come to this country? What brought you here? Why did you come to this country? Where are your children? What are they all doing? Where did you study? About 10 of those questions, and then at the end of the questions, we were barely answering them. Why don't you write something about all of these questions? Everybody wishes to know and all. So the idea came from strangers, and we thought that it may be good time to express our gratitude. That is what this effort is. The values this nation, this wonderfully gracious nation that has given us so much, that we pay tribute to its values, we pay tribute to its generosity and its leadership and goodness. So for that purpose, we launched that effort.
The story, of course, starts in Pakistan. And you talk about your family, your grandfather. What did you learn from your grandfather and from Rumi?
Yeah, everything that really had been imprinted on my heart had been taught by my grandfather to me. He taught me, one day he asked me, we didn't have electricity. We come from a very modest family. So summer nights used to be a wonderful time at night, especially moonlit nights, when he would come and sit at the corner of my bed, and we used to sleep outside in the open sky, and would share some of the stories that he had read, that he had admired. And one story that had always been at the bottom of my heart, so deeply rooted. One night he came and he said, "Where does God live?" And I was sort of intimidated and didn't know the answer. I said, "I don't know, maybe up somewhere." And he said, "Think about it and I'll let you know tomorrow." So I thought all day, all night, that night, so that I could give him the right answer when he comes tomorrow, and I couldn't figure it out. So next night he comes and I was so anxious. He asked me, "Where does God live? Have you figured it out?" I said, "No." He said, "Just think." So I said, "Maybe on the mountains." And he said, "No, if it was that, those mountain dwellers would have found him." I said, "Second guess is maybe in the oceans." He said, "If that was the case, ocean dwellers would have found him." I said, "Maybe the forest." He said, "If that was the case, forest dwellers would have found him. He doesn't live in forest either." So I said, "I give up, please tell me." So he raises his left hand. I still remember that gesture. And he brings that, his finger, and places it on my heart. And said, "That's where God lives. Always remember this. That's where in every person, that's where God lives." And that had been at the foundation of my life and at the story. What perfected, really, I'm not exaggerating because I sit under your light and your grace, coming to this blessed town, this blessed city, taught me something. People ask me in my last class, Dean David Smith asked me this question. He said, "Khizr, what have you learned after coming to Harvard?" I told him this. One, I learned, it humbled me that how little I know. I came with this head full of things that I know this and I know this. After coming to Cambridge, after coming to Harvard, I realized how little I knew, how much I need to learn more. Second thing it taught me was what my grandfather has taught me. Very quietly, it taught me, think through your heart. You will make the right decisions. I used to think through my head, but since then, after coming and being in this graceful city, in this city that had given me so very much, so I am so humbled to be coming back to Cambridge and sit under the grace of the walls of this wonderful institution. It has taught me how to think from my heart, and that had been the life's journey, and that is what had taken us to places that we could have not imagined. It is because of that.
Well, you have reminded all of us who are involved in law, and certainly the Harvard Law School, what the point of it is. And therefore, I was so struck to read your recollection about your first reading of the Declaration of Independence. Where did that happen, and what was your reaction to it?
This was in 1972 that I fell in love with the Declaration of Independence first, and then the Constitution, and then the Bill of Rights. The very first word about this blessed nation I read was Declaration of Independence.
And you were in Pakistan. You were in
Pakistan.
Yes.
Having lived under 2 martial laws, I dare not step outside unless the dictator, the martial law administrator, the authoritarian ruler of Pakistan allows me to step outside. allows me to have a ration card to buy a bag of sugar or bag of flour. It was totally without any civil rights or liberties. When I read the Declaration of Independence, the first line, I had just brought the material from the school and I placed them on my metal desk in my dorm room, and accidentally I looked at the top page. It said Declaration. I said, who declares their independence? Independence is given. The concept of independence to us who came from colonized part of the world is that when your king or your colonist decides that now I cannot extract anything from this nation or this country or this land, let's free them now and leave them at their own. That is how you gain independence. But this nation is declaring its independence. I must read more, so I read more about the rule of law that is enshrined in our articles. And then came the best part of US Constitution, the founding documents, Bill of Rights. All the dignities that are enshrined in our First Amendment, in the rest of the Constitution. The 14th Amendment has become my most favorite, that I have read time after time after time, and we narrate in the book. The inside pages of the book have the picture of my pocket constitution that I used to carry, of the 14th Amendment in Section 1, equal protection of law. It has elevated this nation to a place where it has become aspiration for rest of the world. The rule of law, equal protection of law. It is such concepts that are enshrined in our documents, our founding documents. I used to dream after reading this, will I even be able to? I just did not have the caliber or the courage to dream that there exists such a nation and you will be able to go. I used to say, maybe it is just for my dreams, and then came a wish that maybe I should go to United States and see how these people live and what values there are as a result of these founding documents. And I found generosity, kindness, patriotism. America loves its Constitution. America loves its rule of law. And the best example, my first week in United States, that reaffirmed my faith in American rule of law when I went to get my driver's license at DMV. Rule of law in its full display.
Not everyone has a good feeling about the DMV.
I do. I saw rule of law at full display. Everyone has to come through the door, get your number, and you sit down and you wait your turn. Believe me, that was so impressive, rule of law for me. And because I come from where there are classes of people, then I had come. I belong to this nation. This is my nation. That is why I am so passionate about these values. That is why I am so passionate about our founding documents, about our rule of law, which is enshrined in our articles, and then a Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the 14th Amendment, where the human being is raised up to a level of dignity that rest of the mankind wishes to have, and we are so blessed to have. So that was my first reaffirmation that this nation is nation of rule of law.
Well, I can only say that I learned why it's so precious from reading your words. You were the first member of your family to go to college. What has education meant to you and to your family?
It had meant so very much. Coming from modest means sometime, we impose those limits of lack of resources on ourselves, not realizing that the limitation is only of imagination. My grandfather used to always encourage me that follow your dreams and pursue your education. There was just so much emphasis in his words, in his stories. And we narrate all this in this humble presentation of our gratitude towards this nation. So I used to dream that maybe I'll be able to finish high school, and then high school was finished. Maybe I'll go to college. Not enough funds. I did not have the money to take the final exam of my law. I had to go to Sheikh Imtiaz, bless his heart. He's alive and well in Pakistan, and I went knocking at his door because I went to my parents to ask for the fee to take the exam, and they told me that we don't have that much saving. Maybe next year you should take the exam. But I was so determined, I was so prepared. I said, no, I will take it this year. Can we borrow from somewhere? They said, no, we have no resource to borrow either. I went that evening to my teacher's door in Punjab, in New Campus, Lahore. Luckily, he was there. He came out. He recognized me. I had taken evidence class with him, and he said, how can I help? I said, I cannot take the exam tomorrow because I have not submitted my application with fee. I have the roll number, but it is restricted, that valid after the payment of the fee. He said, okay, wait here. He goes in and writes something on piece of paper and puts it in an envelope and seals it and gives it to me. Take it to the exam, go there early enough. So the exam starts at 9 a.m. I am there at 7 o'clock just to make sure that I get there early enough. And I kept that envelope so carefully on my table, and I woke up, I remember very clearly, early in the morning to make sure it's still sitting there so I can take it.
But you didn't know what he wrote in the letter.
I didn't know. I didn't know. So I took it to the proctor, head proctor at the exam hall, gave it to him. This is from Sheikh Imtiaz. He immediately opened it, and I was dying to read what has he written. And he read it, and he shook his head and calls the assistant and asks him to set up a table for this candidate to sit and take the exam. I was curious, so when he was talking to the proctor, it turned. I was standing, it turned like this, and I was able to read. And that is where my faith in generosity, in human generosity, was again reaffirmed. This is what he said. He said, please let this candidate take the exam. He did not write my name. He said, let this candidate take the exam. I guarantee that his fees will be paid. And I took the exam. So I am testament to generosity, to kindness. Every turn of my life had been full of generosity of others. Maybe it didn't mean much to them, but to me it had been a moment in life that had slowly and gradually moved me forward.
You initially thought you would go to England to study an advanced law degree. What changed your mind?
That reading of Declaration of Independence. and because everyone from subcontinent went to England for advanced law degree, to the land of the masters, but I didn't want to go. I wanted to go there because out of my ignorance, how little I knew that just following the trail of others that went there wouldn't make me complete, wouldn't make me feel complete. But coming to America became the quest after we had first encounter with American in Dubai. I had gotten to Dubai because I wanted to work and save some money so I can then apply and come here and complete my legal education. I had rented a room from a cab driver because I couldn't afford. He told me that Dubai hotels are very expensive. And we tell all of these stories in the book. I don't want to ruin the reader's fun.
Read the book.
Yeah, I had rented a room that had nothing but just 4 walls and a roof, and my suitcase was my pillow and my towel was my bed sheet. So I had slept 2 nights under those conditions. Monday morning I go to work. Now this is first encounter with America. I get to work and I am introduced to Alan. Alan is my boss, and this is an oil exploring company that had hired me. And he begins to, after introduction, begins to explain the work, what I need to do and how and this and this. And then he looks at me in 5 minutes again. He said, "Khizr, you look very tired. Wait." And so I calmed down and just sat there in his office. He picks up the phone and calls somebody. Within half an hour, a lady named Lisa, she comes and she introduces, and she said, "I'm Lisa. I am Alan's wife." "Let's take you to home." I felt embarrassed. I said, I cannot take you where I live. It is nothing but just 4 walls and a floor. And I said, "Which home? I don't have a home here. I am renting a room." I was embarrassed to explain to them where I was staying. They said, no, come. So we went in her car. She drove, and we went to an apartment. This company had rented several apartments and furnished them for the expats that were being employed in Dubai, and they will be coming up until they found permanent housing. So this first American that I met took me to that apartment, and they opened the door. It reminds me of the kindness. That is why every time I think of that moment, I am so gratefully lose my composure because of that feeling of being so grateful even today. They open the door, I walk in, and they walk with me, and there are towels, there are plates. I've never seen that many pillows on a bed before. Three pillows on the bed, and the white bed sheet. Then there are plates, and there are forks and spoons, and Lisa opens the door, and she said, "Khizr, there is bread, and there is butter and jam, and then tea kettle, and the tea, and all of this." And Alan says to me, "Khizr, take a break, rest tonight, rest today, and then let's start tomorrow." And they leave, and they close the door. That was my first introduction to America. The generosity, the kindness. He did not owe me anything. Only thing he owed me was a monthly salary and my work, and that's all. But look at the kindness. So every moment in my life, whenever there was a moment of make and break, others' generosity, kindness, simple gesture, it may not have meant to Alan or Lisa much, but to me it was life-saving moment. And so it is that gratefulness that is at the core of my heart to my nation, to my country, that I have tried to tell the stories through this book.
Your remarkable wife has been a scholar, a mother. She generously prepared food for homeless people. She's helped to mentor and support the cadets of the ROTC at the University of Virginia. How did you meet her, and how did you convince her to come with you?
Yeah. She had to give up a lot. I was a person of no means. When I met her, I was mere student, third-year student, finishing my law school, and without any resource, no means to take the bar. And her mother was, bless her heart, her mother became my most supportive friend throughout her life afterwards, after we got married. But initially, to protect her daughter, she was of the opinion that he is of no means, why you want to marry him. And on the other hand, we have other suitors that are much more resourceful, have everything that a good home would require. But I had met Ghazala in Persian department where she was completing her master's program in Persian literature. And after completing that, she had taught at women's school, women's college, Persian literature. So when she was studying Persian, I was studying law. We were invited to a reception where I saw the first graceful gesture from this young person. She was dressed beautifully in yellow sari, and she carried the tray of tea to serve the ambassador, who was the guest of honor, and her professors, especially her mentor and the advisor of her thesis. So she brings that tray, and I'm watching her. She serves her professor first before she takes the tray to the ambassador. That gesture of utmost respect towards her advisor told me at that very moment that this is a person of substance. She knows how to extend courtesy and respect. That the guest of honor is wonderful, very good. I'll serve him second, but the one that is bestowed this light and grace and education upon me, I must serve him first. That was the first gesture that I continue to say that. And most of our children know all of these stories. One thing I say to them always, that all three of our children are replica, especially Captain Humayun Khan, replica of Ghazala. His generosity, care for others, to own peril, and those characters came to our children from Ghazala. So she had been a center of gravity for us, for the whole families, center of lifting us up, moving us in the right direction, and I'm grateful for that blessing.
I'm going to ask just two more questions and then open it up to discussion. You recently traveled to San Diego to be the keynote speaker at the Anti-Defamation League's No Place for Hate Leadership Conference. Why did you make that effort, and what did you say there?
I would walk barefoot to such an event where this conversation is taking place. I noticed something that I must share. That is where the forgiveness, generosity highlights in its most glorious shape. La Jolla County in San Diego used to have a covenant which used to say, Jews and blacks may not buy property in this county. Look what happened. With my own eyes, I saw that graceful building in the San Diego Medical Center, the Heart Institute, built, financed, named after Irwin and Joanne Jacob. I shook their hand in that meeting. They didn't tell me, others told me the story, how generous they had been, regardless of what that county has written in their covenants. That doesn't exist anymore, of course. But instead of holding grudge, this wonderful couple, a Jewish couple, had given so much to that community, built a Heart Institute, wonderful state-of-the-art institute out of their generosity. It is such examples that make us hopeful that that hate has no place among us in our lives. It restrains human beings, it restrains communities, it restrains mankind from moving forward. The less hate we have, the sooner we eradicate hate and this concept of one is better or the supremacy and all, the faster we will achieve peace, prosperity, and moving forward. So it is for that purpose I went to share my thoughts, what I had observed. I was here in Boston a few weeks ago when Terrorism Music Foundation had invited me to come and participate and watch that beautiful music that was composed in the camps of Germany by the musicians that knew what their fate is, but look at the music they composed under those circumstances. I saw the pictures and the faces of those children that sang in those camps, the hopefulness, the beautiful music that they left us with. And then there was one musician that said that I remember and I carry it with me, and he wrote, "Do not forget me." That's all they ask. And we honor them with that we will never forget them. What they gave us, that is when I say to myself, when I begin to feel hopeless, how dare I feel hopeless? They knew what their fate is going to be in that camp or out of that camp. They all knew, but look what gift they gave us, how hopeful they remain under those circumstances. If they can be hopeful, how dare I am not being hopeful. Therefore, I remain positive, I remain hopeful that this moment in our history, this anomaly in our history is short-lived. This hate that is being displayed against community after community. I come from Charlottesville, Virginia. I was there on 12th of August when that hatred was on full display by chants, by waving of the Nazi flag, which my sons and daughters in Second World War buried so deep, we were hoping it will never rise again in the United States or elsewhere, but it was on full display. But then on Wednesday came the Charlottesville coming together in full glory of American values, families, children singing songs. Today I was being interviewed on a radio, and I told them that one of my tasks coming to Boston is to pay tribute to Bostonians. You have become symbol of American dignity, American grace, American values. When a dozen or so racists showed up in this city to threaten this city, you rose up as a symbol of America, American values. You heartened the entire nation by your 45,000 of you showed up to repel that hate. That is what America has known about Boston, about Bostonians. Under these circumstances, you have become symbol of hope, each and every one of you. The moment I stepped into Portland, Oregon, 2 nights ago, I was in St. Louis. 3 nights ago, I was in Kansas City, Missouri. I spoke to large communities there, and I gave them example of, look at Boston. That is the way America is responding to this unfortunate moment in our history. That is how we are going to repel it from this country. We will bury it so deep it will never rise again. But example of Boston, this nation is following. So we are grateful, and I'm so humbled to be here and standing and speaking and talking before you with this full realization where I am and who has honored me to bring me here.
We are so grateful for all the travel that you're doing. I hope you're getting frequent flyer miles. You recently said, you've mentioned now Charlottesville, and you recently said, and I'm going to quote you, you said, "I am shocked to see Citizen Kelly standing next to the president when the president could not have the proper words to condemn an attack on the blessed city of Charlottesville, Virginia by neo-Nazis." What do you wish the president would say when the next time comes? And what can other people do in the meantime?
Yeah, he should refrain. He's least... he's least articulate person, fortunate. Plus, As Ghazala had said in her op-ed page, when she was maligned, when she was attacked, she had said that this person lacks empathy. He does not have empathy. Without empathy, a leader is nothing but a clown. And unfortunately, such moment the call of the moment is such when these brave men and women, my sons and daughters, offer ultimate sacrifice in defense of this nation, our nation, under very difficult circumstances. These 4 men and women that were killed, 4 men were killed in Africa. They were working, they were defending our nation against this menace of terrorism and died so heroically. That moment calls for utmost dignity, utmost restraint from political expedition, using that moment for political expediency. We know that the president is inarticulate, the president is void of empathy, lack of leadership. Therefore, he should have been advised by his advisors. The reason I take this liberty of criticizing advisors is this, that they are on public payroll. That White House is supported by our tax dollar. We have every right to criticize them when they show their incompetency. John Kelly's incompetency. John Kelly's, we honor his service, we honor his family's sacrifice, but now he is supporter of the most bigoted president. Now he is supporting a president that has displayed lack of leadership. He should have instructed the president, written on piece of paper, this is how you express your condolence to Gold Star family in the moment of grief, in such a moment where this nation places these families at the highest level of dignity because they have sacrificed for the well-being of this nation. That was not done. The expression of condolence is not at the person who is expressing condolence. It's not at their level, at their understanding that I express the condolence. No, the condolence is at the recipient's understanding, how the recipient is going to receive this. And that is why I criticize John Kelly, that he knows better than anyone else that what is required at that moment, privacy, dignity, and restraint, and that was not on display. That was the most incompetency by a flag officer of this country, former flag officer of this country, that was on display. That was his obligation to restrain this president from exploiting it for political expediency, that moment of privacy and dignity. And then, if that was not possible, write the proper words. White House has a protocol to make these phone calls. Call the family first. They normally do. They will call. Do you have privacy? Are you sitting down at one place? Can you take this phone call? Would you have a few minutes in private to speak to the president? Nothing of that sort was done in that case, and especially in the case of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson. The call was made while they were driving to the funeral home. Wait till the burial has taken place. Grant some privacy and dignity. But that wasn't the case, and that is the reason of my criticism.
Well, as I hope someone passes the message to the president, as I invite people to come up to the mic if you have a question, and please then identify yourself, let me just share with everyone what Senator John McCain said. I'd like to say to Mr. and Mrs. Khan, thank you for immigrating to America. We're a better country because of you, and you are certainly right. Your son was the best of America, and the memory of his sacrifice will make us a better nation, and he will never be forgotten. That's the kind of message. Please identify yourself.
My name is Kenneth Oy. I'm a professor at MIT and a graduate of Harvard. My question begins by noting that you drew attention to sacred texts of the United States at the convention, holding aloft the Constitution. And you've written a new sacred text in this book, with your life and your family's experiences as something that is central to all Americans. The last words in your book were, "No river runs alone." And you have been traveling all over the country. You're a river everywhere right now. My question is, what has been the most unexpected reaction and response from those who would be expected to be critical? Expected to be critical in a strange way, because what you've done is American in the truest sense of the word. But reaching across those lines to those that are not thinking like Bostonians in blue states is part of what is necessary now. So what is the most unexpected delight that you've had? We can leave out the bad stuff for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Quickly, I have traveled to many places. Amazing positive response, cards, letters, thank you notes for reminding about the Constitution, about the true values of and the generosity of this nation. I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. A group of veterans, those who identified themselves and said, "We did not vote for the candidates you voted." One of the veterans stood up and she pulled her arm and she said, "Mr. Khan, you see these marks? These are my dialysis marks. I am on dialysis. You think I will survive? Where is my health care? I am worried to death." The whole half of the room that were of the other party, they stood up, they said, "Mr. Khan, we were promised better employment. Where is better employment? Where is our health care? What do you advise us?" Then they asked me something, "You're a lawyer. Legal Services Corporation used to provide us free legal services. We are worried. We hear that it is not being financed. Who is going to take care of us in time of need?" I did not have answer to them. I simply said to them that, "Call your senators, express exactly same thing what you said to me." And they said, "We have buyer's remorse now, that was just fakery, that misguided us. And so we will." And they did call, because I received the emails from some of them telling us that the senator and the congressman and state senators have responded very positively. They have promised that they will convey that message to rest of their colleagues. And luckily, I had ACLU in the audience there. I told them that go to them for your legal services, for your needs, that the Legal Services Corporation will not be able to provide because of the limit on funding. So that is the way people are realizing that in democracy, you do not stand by. You must participate. You must. Tomorrow is 7th of November. There is amazing sanctity in tomorrow's day, which is that every person that lives in democracy must stand up and participate tomorrow. Mere going to the election booth and casting your vote has amazing sanctity in strengthening our democratic institution, our democracy that is under threat not only from internally by this divisiveness, but from outside as well. So we all, those who love rule of law, the democracy, the democratic values, must participate in the process of democracy.
Thank you. Please.
Do you actually, with all your experience that you've had so far, do you have a plan to run for public office one day?
This was suggested by all the way up to the Congress leadership, and my only humble request was that if I could one day come to the Capitol Hill and sweep the steps of the Capitol, that will be such an honor for me. That is how I feel about that institution that is being maligned by this administration. Our legislative body, our separation of power, our agencies of government and all hold such a high place in my heart and in my soul that I am not deserving of serving there as a politician, but as a humble servant to people, I'll continue to speak and continue to do that, but no aspirations to run for office.
So Hillary Clinton supported the illegitimate invasion of Iraq, which killed hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. She also supported the genocidal sanctions on Iraq throughout the 90s when she was in the White House, as well as every other illegitimate war that America's been in, Libya, Afghanistan, the Kosovo in the Balkans, et cetera, et cetera. So how could you support a mass murderer and war criminal like Hillary Clinton? If there was any international rule of law, she would be at The Hague on trial rather than running for president.
Sir, let me tell you about my son. I was with the group, and I remain with the group, who opposed Iraq war first and second. My son gave his life in Iraq because of that Iraq war. So if you talk about holding somebody responsible, you know, I have my side of this story to tell. Captain Humayun Khan and I had this conversation, and he very well knew when he was being deployed that I am against that war. All of those who have orchestrated or took us to that war, I was not in favor of that war then. It has not served us well. It was obvious to me, knowing a little bit about the history of that area, that it will not serve us well when we were first going there or second time going there. So I have my perspective, but my son said to me that he has taken the oath of defending the Constitution. He will serve his responsibility, which is to him protecting his men and women that were sent there. And he said to me this, he said, I don't think like that. I'm a military officer. I obey the Constitution. I obey the order. He said to me that if I have any discussion about any difference, opinion, I should go to Washington and convince the politicians who make these decisions instead of trying to convince my son, who was a military officer. So we have paid very heavy price for these engagements of United States, but some of us are so convinced that we must fulfill the oath of office that we have taken. And I bow my head to the commitment that Captain Humayun Khan made, and he served his nation and his country with dignity. To the last minute of his life, he was protecting his men and women. And read the book and you will find out the story of his life and how we had been against some of the adventures of my blessed nation.
You don't think you were used by the Democrats and by Clinton campaign?
No, we were reluctant to participate in that. It's a story that we tell, that we were advised by our children not to go to the convention, and we were advised by our well-wishers not to go to the convention because we are not of that caliber or that category to participate in such a. But after the statement made, that bigoted statement made, I will ban all Muslims, I will throw all Hispanics out of United States, they are criminals, women are of not equal dignity, and judges are partial. We used to receive calls, and whenever we would visit with our grandchildren's homes and friends, they would reach out to me in Ghazala and said, you're an attorney, is it possible that we will be thrown out of here? Could you make sure that we are not thrown out of here? Where would we go? Can we finish our elementary school? Can we finish our middle school? So I would hearten them. And the first page of the book is that highlighted, underlined 14th Amendment, Section 1, that I would read to them. Then came the invitation to pay tribute to Captain Humayun Khan, and we agreed. We were not invited then. And afterwards, a few days later, came the invitation that we are inviting other families. Would you like to come? And I said, we really are not political people, and let us think about this. So everyone in our family, among our friends, told us, do not go. This is not your cup of tea. my brother asked a question, so I'm answering it in detail so you would understand. And it is in detail in the book that we were totally reluctant to go. But the final day that they had given us 2 days to think, there came a card from some of the students that we had heartened, that we had held and encouraged them that read Section 1 of 14th Amendment, you cannot be thrown out of here. And the card said this. It was a by hand placed envelope in our mailbox because there was no stamp on it. And that card was written by 4 middle school students. I immediately recognized the name of this school, did not recognize the name of the 4 students. And this is the line that sent us. You know, my brother said that, have you not been used by? That is just such a bogus statement, because I know what took us to that stage, because when I made the call to DNC, so I picked up that envelope from the mailbox. Out of curiosity, I opened it standing at the mailbox, and this is what that line said, which took us immediately to accepting the invitation. This is what that line said. Mr. and Mrs. Khan, would you make sure that Maria is not thrown out of this country? She's our friend and we love her. I looked at that line one more time and I walked a little faster to home to tell Ghazala, look, maybe our time has come to go. And I made that phone call immediately that yes, we would come. Now you tell me how you say that that Hillary Clinton's campaign used us. I wrote that speech. I am an articulate person. Out of ignorance, people say that this was written. After accepting the invitation, they told us you have 2 minutes. Immediately I sat down to write. Overnight, I wrote 12 pages of my grievances, giving example after example of what children have said to me in my private conversation after that bigoted statement. And I told next morning to Ghazala, please sit and listen to my speech that I have written and tell me if we can do this in 2 minutes. These were about 12 pages. She had the clock in her hand. Some of these people that are totally ignorant of these facts say these things, that you were used, you were planted, speech was written, constitution was given, and all of that. So anyway, the very first line of my speech, original speech, that bless her heart, Ghazala corrected, removed it, said this. These are my words. I have not plagiarized from Michelle Obama's speech. She took the pen. She said, no, you're not going to say this. She forbade me from, she said, this is a dignified moment. You cannot start with this. And pulling of the Constitution, it's in the book, you should read it, but I have been keeping the copy of the Constitution in my pocket since 2005. And this is the reason. I used to give gift of whenever cadets would come to our home, as to pay tribute, to pay respect to Humayun's family. I thought that it will be a nice gesture to offer them a gift. I used to give Senator McCain's book, Why Courage Matters, and it used to cost $20 each copy. And 20 copies, and you do the math, was becoming expensive. So I was renewing my bar membership. Quickly, I tell you the story because there are other questions. I was renewing my ABA membership that I saw on the American Bar's webpage, pocket-sized Constitution, 99 cents. I said, we got it. I ordered 50 copies, and I've been keeping copies of that since then. I started to keep, since then I've been giving cadets a copy of the Constitution with this suggestion that please read this. You will be taking an oath to defend this Constitution. And they would say to me, admittedly, that we have taken course in political science, we have read the subject of Constitution, but we have not read it from A to Z, Declaration of Independence, Articles, and Bill of Rights in this order, so thank you for giving us this copy. Since then, I've been keeping in my pocket a copy of the Constitution. So we are in Philadelphia. This is the tail end of the answer to my brother. We are moving. The words in the speech were, you have not read the Constitution of United States. If you read, look for the word liberty and equal protection. And we had submitted our thoughts. They told us 260 words only, so we narrowed it down to 260 and submitted them so that they can run it in their system and all that. Anyway, so in the hotel room, we are going to the cab, and they had told us to make sure you don't bring any coins or keys in your pocket. Security is very tight. So I'm checking my pockets of the coat, and I discovered that I have a copy of the Constitution in my pocket. So I tell Ghazala, this is conversation taking place in the elevator, that I have this copy. Can I pull it out? And she again, rightly, she had been editor of my life, correcting. She said to me, no, you cannot do this unless you take permission from them. But let's sit down in the cab and let's practice. How would you, if they give you permission, how would you pull it out? I said, I'll pull it out like this. She said, look, this doesn't say anything. So now we are in the cab, and I am doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And the cab driver, I can tell, is looking at us and laughing and smiling. So we got to the green room, and they have a green room set up with lots of floodlights and lots of noise so that ordinary people don't make that kind of speeches under those circumstances. People get confused. So to put some familiarity with the light and noise, they have a green room and a podium set up. So I'm standing there, Ghazala is next to me. And I had asked Ghazala several times before then, and even at that moment, that would you speak? Just simply say thank you for inviting, and Khizr will speak. She said, you know that the moment I have my son's picture in the background, I cannot maintain my composure. And that will be so indignifying, the moment if I fell apart. So don't insist. So I'm not insisting. So I told her that hold the podium tight and make sure you remain standing, because many a times I have known this, that she had collapsed whenever mention of Humayun comes. She has not, even today, she has not admitted to herself, because from her gestures, from her reactions, that he's not there. That is why we invite these cadets to our home, that the moment they come in, we have a sense in each and every one of them, we see little reflection of Humayun, that he's just around the corner, he'll come out of the other room with this smile on his face and all, for such reasons. So she stands there, and I asked the producer, can I pull out the Constitution like this? And he's standing there, he comes very close to me, he said, Mr. Khan, are you sure you're going to do this? I said, yes. He said, go ahead and do this, this will be very powerful. So some of these nonsense that is written by people that really don't know anything, say these things to malign us. There is another story that why we moved to Charlottesville is activity, something suspicious activity on our part, not knowing that all of my 3 sons have gone to University of Virginia. They have their business there, they have their lives there. We moved there for the purpose of being close to them in 2005, and one of the newscaster alleged that his wife is a pediatrician. She works in some other thousands of miles away city, and why do they live in Charlottesville and all that, just to malign. And so I asked Ghazala, I said, I didn't know you were a pediatrician. So, but anyway, sorry to give you a long answer, but I want you to understand where we came from. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Laurel Collins. I am an ed advocate, and I am the mother of 4 children, 3 teenagers, and we watched the convention all together. And I can speak on behalf of my family, and I suspect many people here, by saying we are grateful for your speech, and we watched with joy and with admiration. My 15-year-old is studying the Constitution, and she and her sister were having a conversation about how difficult it was for her. And my daughter, Emily, told my daughter, Sarah, you need to be just like Mr. Khan and have a pocket-sized Constitution. So you're now talked about by teenagers. My question to you is, beyond the lofty goals of what we want them to be when they get older and they're in college and they're going out and they're making their own path, to kind of the youth of today who see the president ruling by tweet and this divisive nature which this country is, which is depressing to them and to many of us. What would you say to them is something they can do in a day-to-day, here and now, to help better this country and to show kindness and joy and in what your son and your family stand for?
Yeah.
Thank
you. Senator Flake of Arizona wrote a wonderful article today. I want you to read it to them. In that article, he says that the leaders that sit in Washington today are not to be followed. Are not to be followed. He says in that article, I'm using his words, that this is what I tell my children and their friends: do not follow the leaders that sit in Washington today. Use that, and it has a wonderful, wonderful expression of how majority of America feels today in his article. So eloquently written. It embodies my sentiments, my thoughts, and I borrow words from his speech and then his writing that is published today. That we are a country of good values. We are a country of pluralism. Everyone is included. Read the section 1 of 14th Amendment, equal protection. These are powerful, universal concepts. Rest of the mankind aspires to have them. We have them. We are so blessed that you and I have them. Our children have them. We must affirm their belief, their commitment to these values, so that not only we continue to cherish, but the rest of the mankind continues to come and learn these values: rule of law, equal protection, due process. These are amazing concepts that rest of the mankind aspires to have them. We are so blessed. We will continue to prevail, and these values and these dignities, human dignities, will continue to prevail. Thank you.
I just want to introduce Adam, and he is our final question tonight.
Okay.
So it's just kind of elaborating on the last question, which was about the teens wanting to do what I was wondering what I can do right now to help protect the Constitution and read it and everything, but also conserve it, and how can I protect it?
Yeah. What a... Just that sentiment with which you ask this question is our hope. Is our hope. That sentiment. Believe me, you're asking that question is so powerful, and that sentiment exists throughout the youth of United States. I am testament to that. Throughout the country, our young leaders, our future leaders are saying that. What can we do to strengthen, to defend, to keep these values intact and in practice? When that sentiment exists, there is no way that anyone can deter us, can take these values away from us, and hold on to that. One thing that I always share with our future leaders, our custodians of the Constitution, I call you, is this, that it is democratic principle. It is at the foundation of democracy, civility in discourse. Do not imitate Washington. Do not learn from them. Conduct yourself with utmost civility. If you disagree with somebody, have a conversation, but with civility, with peaceful manner, with peaceful gesture. The reason is that at the end of the day, we are all Americans. We are all under same democracy, same values, and same goodness. Therefore, we must extend the same dignity we want for us to others. So civility in discourse. As long as you do that, second thing is fairness. Always be for fairness. I learned from my teacher, my professors. This is what I learned here, how to remain standing for fairness and be fair. If you see somebody bullying somebody, you don't have to fight. You don't have to get physically involved. Simply being fair, standing for those who are being unfairly treated. I end my answer with telling you when Captain Humayun Khan was in 5th grade, a boy was bullying a girl in the same class, and Ghazala got a call, my wife got a call from the principal's office that, Mrs. Khan, please come to principal's office. We have something to tell you about Humayun. She rushed to the principal's office, and principal had a boy and a girl and their teacher and Humayun in the class. And the principal looked at the worried face of Mrs. Khan, and he said to her, don't worry, this is something good that I wanted to share. He said, today I noticed something that I wish every student will do in school. This boy was bullying this girl 2-3 times every day. And today Humayun stood up to this boy and told, you will not bully her anymore. And he said that I wish every person would have that strength and would stand for the fairness. So remember that whenever you see something of that, no need to physically be involved or be violent or be a distraction. Just simply stand for the fairness. Thank you for, I am heartened by your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Thank you, Mr. Khan, for standing for fairness. And I think we are now all eager to come and buy your book.
All right. Thank you.